Welcome to the Quick Flicks video series for digitizing. I'm Lindy Goodall of Lindy G Embroidery, and in this video I'll be demonstrating how to adapt a design for embossing a single letter monogram on towels. This technique uses a mesh of light density fill stitches to mat down the nap in the negative area of the design and leaves the open area to poof up, and that becomes the positive area, or actually the design area. I am working in Generations, and if you have another program, you should be able to reproduce the technique with an appropriate design. If you have Generations and you aren't very familiar with it, you may find that I don't give enough details for you to completely reproduce this design. In that case, I recommend getting my Learn to Digitize course. This is an 8-volume college-level course on learning Generations and professional digitizing theory. So let's begin. I've created a new blank document with the grid enabled at 10 by 10 millimeters. Measurements are set to millimeters. I always work in millimeters. And auto center is turned off. I have a 100 millimeter hoop displayed, and this is just for reference purposes only. Now you notice down at the bottom of the screen I have the building blocks bar enabled. Building blocks are just one of the coolest things. It's one of my favorite features about Generations. Generations does come with a bunch of pre-made building blocks, and they'll be on the individual tabs, but the ones we're looking at here are ones that I've created, and they are available in my shop. This is monogram frames, and they're in Generations and multi-format designs. So if you don't have Generations, you can get them. You probably won't be able to do what we're doing today with it. So I'm going to work with this design. I'll just drag it out here, and since I don't have auto center turned on, it's not centered, but we can get it kind of centered if we need to. I'm going to resize it to 100 millimeters wide. And I'm going to turn off my hoop. I don't need my hoop anymore. And I need to regenerate because I have resized it. Now this particular design is an applique. And I know that because, well, I digitized it, but also I can see that applique is set over here. And the value of applique is that this object is an area type. It's not a satin stitch border, and since it's an area type, we'll be able to copy and paste that to make our mesh. Next, I need to get rid of a few bits. So we'll start by ungrouping the design, and I'm going to hide the frame. Hidden parts cannot be selected. So I need to deselect, and then I can press delete, and that way I've preserved my area. Now the lock does not prevent things from being deleted. So as long as it's not selected and you have it hidden, then it cannot be deleted. So now I just have my frame, and next we need to add our monogram. So I'm going to go to Insert Text. I already have a G selected here. I've got it sized to 50. I've used Bernard Tango. You can pick any font you like. You do need to pick one that has fairly thick strokes, and to make mine thicker I added bold. So click OK and generate. And I think I want to make it just a little bit bigger. And I do need to make sure that it's in the right place. So now we're ready to make our mesh. I'm going to copy and paste. And it doesn't really look like anything's happened on the screen, but over here you can see that we have another monogram border, and I'm going to pick complex fill. And now we have a big blob of complex fill covering up our design. So we need to change some stitch attributes. And because it's activated, I can just press the space bar, go into Area Object Stitch Properties. We're going to leave the basic step, which is stitch length, set to 3. I'm going to turn off underlay. I'm going to go to the complex tab, and I'm going to set my max step at 3.5. I want to keep a relatively short stitch length. If you read Anatomy of a Design, you know that shorter stitches pull into the fabric more. We don't want these looping up, and we want them to compress the nap on our fabric. I don't like this really short stitch length. I'm going to change it to 0.5. And I'm going to change my density to 2. This will really open up the design. I'm also going to use smooth edges. Now before I turn in smooth edges, let's slide this over. I'm going to click Apply, and you can kind of see how these are kind of pointy coming in here. If I turn on smooth edges and click Apply, now all the edges go all the way out to the edge, and it just makes a much neater edge. Only do this on an open density fill. So now the next step is to create a void, because this G is going to become our open area. So to do that, my area is already activated. I'll go into outline mode, right click to bring up the contextual menu, choose create a void using existing area, move my mouse around until I find that G and click it. Then I just click generate, and now I have my void in there. Now before we get rid of the G, I want to put a border on it. So I'll select it, go to Stitch, create outline from area edges. I want a satin border, and my G doesn't have any enclosed areas. If you had an O or this tail crossed over here, I'd want to do all borders to make sure I got the inside and the outside, but I only have an outside border. I'm going to change the width to 1.5 and leave the offset as is and click OK and generate. Now if I hide this and this, let's zoom in and see how this worked. And that looked pretty good. Sometimes we get some little wonky stitches, this because the nodes on the lines, and the nodes would be in here. So when you click this, these are the nodes, and these affect how the stitch angles get placed. But we got lucky this time. Click generate. Now I can get rid of this G, Control Delete, turn this on, and let's set our angle here. So I'll right click that, change my little angle handle to change the stitch direction. Now I'm going to, let's zoom back out where you can see everything. We'll copy and paste, right click that one, change that stitch angle to this direction, generate, move that behind the G, make sure nothing is selected, generate again. And all that did was update the pathing. Now we don't have any travel stitches that cross through our grid, but we will have travel stitches that double back. So there'll be places where you might have 2 or 3 passes on the same line, but they won't be as visible as if they were snaking through the design at some odd angle. The next thing we can do to optimize our design is change our applique. So I'll select that, press the space bar, go to the Applique tab. I don't need the placement or the tack down since we're not actually doing this as an applique. Click OK. That'll save us some stitches and reduce our stitch count a little bit. And there's our design. Now to sew this, we would want to have a water-soluble topping on our towel. I would probably use a water-soluble back, like wash away. So I'd use a film on the top and the fiber-based stabilizer on the back. And let's make sure that this color is all one color. This design is all one color. Export it to your sewing machine and go ahead and sew it. Now if you'd really like to learn how to digitize and really learn how to use Generations in the process, get the full Learn to Digitize course. Why just push buttons when you can create any design you want?